Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Pitch Side podcast. I'm your host, HOD, the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications, always to receive all the updates from the episodes of the podcast and all the videos of the channel, and of course follow us on social media as well as listening on any podcast listening platform available. Follow us on social media as I said everywhere. Welcome to episode 51. Before we get in with the rest of the episode, of course, to preview the weekend, mainly the Premier League and Serie A, because as I said in last week's episode, I don't really have a lot to talk about anymore in La Liga or in the Bundesliga. So I will definitely start from Arsenal or Tottenham versus Arsenal, the game that I'm going to be leading with that game into the Premier League preview, but of course the game on its own has a big context to play in, top 4 battles, stuff like that, and North London derby in its own right, and it definitely didn't disappoint in terms of the result, giving us maybe a final twist in that top 4 battle for the last 2 games or so. Tottenham defeated Arsenal 3-0 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It was not one-sided, but I think it was clear that once the red card was given, in particular for Ben White, for that stupid, and I mean stupid, obstruction for Heung-min Son, I think the game was set. The game was really the path of the game, or the sort of the momentum of the game, was defined for whose team the momentum is going for. Tottenham scored the second shortly afterwards. 4 minutes after the red card, they scored the second goal. And they pretty much got the game done and dusted from there, because Arsenal looked stressed, they didn't look sharp, they looked a little bit rushed, trying to do everything in as quickly as possible, almost to the point of rushing it, not really giving it any thoughts how they're going to be trying to score. I mean, the first 5 to 10 minutes really looked for me that Arsenal pressing high, doing really well, trying to force the issue out of Spurs, which is something that, I'm not going to say not a lot of teams do, but I think the way that Spurs play, they are the ones that invite the pressure, they are the ones that let the team get the ball and do whatever they want with it. But I think in this case, Arsenal tried to do something different for the first 10 minutes, but then Conte managed to get his fingers on the pulse, obviously using Son as the main man up front. At the moment, Kane a little bit wider, becoming a little bit more of a setup player, and that's not a slight on Kane. Actually, is doing it really, really well. He's always been that good. Since the Mourinho days, has been doing that non-stop. Kulusevski adding the wild card, really. The midfield now has a good combination of Bentancur and Højbjerg, and that really transitions into the way that they move the ball. I mean, Tottenham move the ball a little bit more smoothly now, because they have people in the midfield that could do that. They have Bentancur, as I mentioned, someone who could link up pretty well. Højbjerg maybe will do the simple task of just, giving the first pass and that's it. Kulusevski, Son and Kane will take care of the rest. They knew that the right-hand side of Arsenal's defence is pretty bad, considering that Cedric Soares was on the right-hand side with no Tierney, with no Nuno Tavares. For Arsenal, they started with Tomiyasu on the left, which I thought was weird, because I thought maybe you should have started them on the right and then you start, Cedric Soares on the left, but they chose to play him on the right. And that was costly because he gave away a penalty. And then, of course, the penalty, I mean, I saw a lot of people complaining, actually, about the penalty on social media, and I think this is one of those that, if the referee gives it, you can understand why he did, and if he doesn't, you can understand why he didn't, or if you don't think it's a penalty, there's an argument that can be made about that, actually, that is not actually a penalty for Spurs, because there was a nudge in the back from Cedric Soares. A lot of referees said, Martin Clattenburg, for example, one of the biggest names in European refereeing, said that this shouldn't have been a penalty, because if it would have been given, there would be a lot of other examples from other games in the Premier League where something similar happens and it's not given as a penalty. So consistency is key, and there's some people even questioning if the VAR and the referees are trying to sort of conjure up some excitement for the Premier League, which is, I mean, the weirdest conspiracy theory I've ever heard, but, some people believe in it, so there's that, we're throwing it out there. So anyway, Tottenham in the second half, they scored the third goal very early, and the game was done from there. The rest of the half was formalities, basically. Arsenal were pretty much deflated. They were just trying to litigate the damages and not concede any more goals, because it makes difference. Remember, the goal difference makes a big difference in terms of the if they end up on the on the exact same number of points. But now it is 1 point for Tottenham behind Arsenal, 65 for them at 5th, and 66 for Tottenham for Arsenal at 4th. But the last two games, of course, the difference in schedule between the two sides, Newcastle, Everton for Arsenal, two sides that you don't know, and particularly Everton, you don't know Everton will be in the last game, and Tottenham face I'm not going to say much easier challenges, but I think they have a game in against Burnley, which is hard because Burnley need the win, although it is a game at home. And then they have a trip to Norwich City that doesn't really add up because Norwich are relegated, and the game is going to be won, I suppose, and done for Tottenham there. I think they're going to enter, depending on what's going to happen in the next round, they're going to enter either as 5th, and that's it, and they're going to be 5th for the next season. They're playing the Europa League, or they will enter with a chance of winning and waiting a result from Arsenal, who will play Everton at home. So you don't really have a lot of Arsenal have a bit of advantage still, but I think Spurs maybe could get up something if Arsenal slip in one of those two games, which in my opinion I think is still unlikely. But the result in itself as an isolated result is great for Spurs, great for their momentum maybe. For Son in particular, who is now 1 goal away from Mo Salah and could still at least end up being the top scorer of the season if Salah doesn't make it up in the last two games. And it will be, a great ending for the season for Spurs if they could make it in the Champions League, but most likely they will be in the Europa League next season. But I really think that Conte now knows what to do, and next season is going to go demand some transfers that he needs and wants, and profiles that he specifically requests for, like he did in other clubs, and the board will have to accept, will have to oblige, unless they want to fire him and sack him and pay the rest of his contract off, which is a policy that they did a lot before. They did with Pochettino, they did with Mourinho, so they don't want to do that again. So they have to, simply follow Conte's lead. At the moment, it's a big victory, as I mentioned, for Spurs, although maybe it will be useless in the end of the season. So we lead with that into the Premier League preview for the weekend round 37. Of course, 9 games will be played from this round, as Manchester United versus Chelsea has already been played late April and ended with a 1-0 draw, of course. The rest of the fixture starts on Sunday, in fact, with Spurs playing Burnley on Sunday afternoon early kickoff, Aston Villa vs Crystal Palace, Leeds United playing Brighton Hove Albion, Watford playing Leicester City, Manchester City going away to West Ham, Wolverhampton playing Norwich City, Everton Brentford. On Monday it is Newcastle vs Arsenal, and Southampton Liverpool finishes off the round on Tuesday, as they play, of course, the FA Cup final on Saturday afternoon. It was, this is the final, let's say, the final round, the final turn in the Premier League season, of course. Big time, a big moment for a lot of teams, of course, at the top and at the middle and at the bottom. Let's start from the top as usual, and the top title battle between City and Liverpool. And in my opinion, I genuinely believe it, and it's going to be on the title, it's going to be on the thumbnail. But I think City winning the Premier League title is just a formality at the moment. I don't think they will slip either of their 2 games, let alone slipping 2 games, which is the needed for Liverpool. I mean, City need to drop 4 points out of the next 6 so that Liverpool can win the league if they win both their games. So it's genuine mathematical hoops that sides need to get over, because genuinely it feels that way for Liverpool, particularly in terms of goal difference. I mean, in the space of 2 games, City absolutely turned it around. City were 84 goals. They were 2 goals behind Liverpool in terms of goal average. Then you have City scoring 5 against Newcastle and 5 against Wolverhampton away from home to make it 94. And basically, that factor is now done. Liverpool can only dream of scoring 5 in the next 2 games, 5 in each game for the next 2 games. It's going to be an impossible task for Liverpool to do. I'm not going to say they can't do it, but it would take something spectacular for them to do it, particularly with Southampton being away from home, as the game is going to be a tough game for them against Southampton, although Southampton do not have really anything to lose if they lose the game, but they will play for pride, I suppose, as they should do for the season. City, they play against West Ham away, a hard game in all honesty, but despite West Ham needing the points, and they still could end up in the Europa League positions. Of course, if they win the game against City, and they have, if they win the game against City, they will be over Manchester United in the goal difference department. Manchester United, believe it or not, and this is a crazy stat that I thought it was trolling. I thought a troll tweet or something. I saw that the goal difference for City is 72 goals plus, and the goal difference for United is 1 goal. 1 goal. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy when you think about it. You think of, sides in the. I mean, there's sides, and I think that genuinely sides in the above them and below Man United. I mean, there's actually sides below Man United that have better goal average. Crystal Palace have 4 goals plus going for them. So there's really a big disparage, I think, when you think about City Liverpool's goal average. So that can be explained easily. So in terms of goal average, there's no way that Liverpool can take over City in that department. So the only option left is that City slipping up against West Ham in the London Stadium, Liverpool winning Southampton, then the end of the season, Liverpool would beat Wolverhampton at home, and then City would have to lose against Villa at home. So it will be a celebratory, I suppose, game for City if they win their game against West Ham, and if they win their game, and if Liverpool win against Southampton, if City win against West Ham away from home, that's your title done and dusted. And it will be a formality, as I mentioned, for City just to win the Premier League trophy. Elsewhere, top 4 battle, of course, Arsenal Spurs as usual for the 4th spot for the Champions League. Spurs still within a shout, of course, for that, but will need them to beat Burnley at home. It's not going to be an easy game because it's been familiar this season, I think, for Spurs to win big games, then certainly drop the game afterwards. They certainly defeated City 3-2, then they lost to Southampton 3-2, and at home as well. So it's not going to be surprising if Burnley pick up a result, a draw, or even a win against Spurs at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, although I don't think that will happen. They defeated them early on in the season in the Turf Moor, so that's not going to be the most surprising result of all. But obviously Tottenham now, they need to pick up the momentum. They need to win the 2 games that they have and wait for a gift from Arsenal. They lose in one of those games, or they drop points. Whatever happens, they need to win those 2 games to make a late surge for those Champions League spots. And the 4th spot in particular, of course, with the 3rd, is reserved definitely for Chelsea. Aston Villa Crystal Palace, a game that doesn't mean anything. I mean, loads of games do not mean a lot in this weekend. Aston Villa Crystal Palace, Leeds versus Brighton, although Leeds need the point to try to survive. They seem to be, Jesse Marsch seems to be under real pressure of being sacked if the side is relegated to the second division or the championship. Burnley as well need the points to survive, as I mentioned in the game against Spurs. Then you have Everton, who play Brentford at home, although that looks like a game where Everton should have advantage, but Brentford, they want to end the season as good as they can be, so they will try and win away from home. They can do that. They are on a good form, Brentford themselves as of late. Christian Eriksen is really doing well with the side in the last couple of games. They only lost 1 in the last 6. 2 in the last 9 if you extend the streak, which is a good form considering Brentford were also on the verge of being relegated at a certain point of the season. They were down and out, and people almost counted them out in terms of surviving and staying in the Premier League. So that's good to see that they're doing really well, and they are going to be staying in the Premier League for next season. And then you have, of course, Newcastle-Arsenal, a game that doesn't mean anything for Newcastle, but for Arsenal, it means a lot, as you mentioned, reverting back to that top 4 battle. Arsenal, they simply need to win the games that they have. They don't need to drop any points. If they win this game, and Tottenham drop points against Burnley, that's it. Arsenal guarantees the 4th spot and return to the Champions League next season, and that's going to, of course, launch an entire policy next season for Arsenal, how they're going to be recruiting and what they're going to be planning for the next season, because they have to make a good return to the Champions League. Whatever the result will be, they have to make a good impact. And of course, the most benefits that they would reap from that competition would be financial, certainly, because Arsenal would need the income of the Champions League, to boost their finances a little bit. And then, of course, as I mentioned, lastly, Southampton versus Liverpool on Tuesday. As I mentioned, it's going to be a big game for Liverpool away from home. They would be hoping that West Ham would trip up City on Sunday. Although even if they drop points, even if they draw, they only have 1 point, and it doesn't look to me that City will lose at home against Aston Villa in the last round. I don't think so. I don't think that will happen. Even if Gerrard is the Aston Villa manager and people trying to make the links and stuff, but I don't think that will happen. I think it's a formality now. City should win the league, and next season with Haaland in their ranks, who knows? Maybe it will be a domination. Maybe the Farmers League era of the Premier League would start with City now potentially on their way for their 4th trophy out of the last 5 seasons. And who knows what could happen next season with Haaland in their ranks, as I mentioned. My predictions for the 9 games: Spurs, Burnley, I think is going to be a tight one. Tottenham would win 2-0, I think. Villa, Crystal Palace, 2-1 for Villa. Leeds United, Brighton, Hove Albion, I think Brighton would win for Leeds, 2-1 away from home. Watford, Leicester, I think Leicester would have a comfortable victory this time. Watford have nothing to lose, they're already relegated, 3-0 or 3-1 probably for Leicester. West Ham versus City, I think is going to be a pedestrian win. It's going to be a hard win, it's going to be a pedestrian City win. I think it's going to be 3-0. As well, Wolverhampton will beat Norwich City, 2-0. Everton, Brentford, unfortunately, I think Brentford have better momentum and they are a better team, although I'm not counting out Everton. I think a draw 1-1 would do. Newcastle, I think they're going to be losing against Arsenal 1-0, and Southampton will lose to Liverpool 2-1. These are my predictions for the penultimate round of the Premier League, and hopefully we'll see the race go down to the wire. To a much tighter title race in Europe, we go to Italy and we go to Serie A, of course, round 37. It's still everything to play for in terms of the title. Also for the relegation in that league as well, everything is still to play for. Even Venezia, who are bottom with 25 points and 5 points behind safety with Salernitana being at 17th, they still have all to play for. So the round kicks off on Friday with Empoli, on Saturday with Empoli playing Salernitana, Hellas Verona playing Torino, and Udinese Spezia. It's 3 games with absolute big importance. All of them involve sides who are fighting to survive. Actually, Hellas Verona, Torino, no, but Empoli, Salernitana want to get a big victory to avoid any sort of last day drama, last day, let's say, tragedy to be more precise, because a victory for them would mean momentarily before the game, before Cagliari play Inter on Sunday, 4 points above Cagliari and 4 points into safety as well. Udinese Spezia, they need the victory or at least a draw to potentially guarantee that they will be in Serie A next season, albeit nothing's really guaranteed at the moment. And then you have on Saturday as well, Roma versus Venezia, as we mentioned. Venezia, potentially this is going to be the last dance in the Serie A. They lose against Roma, they're officially out and down to the Serie B. On Sunday, Bologna plays Sassuolo, a game with no stakes pretty much. Napoli, Genoa, also a game with no stakes. Napoli, their place is guaranteed in the top 4. They don't have to worry, they're not going to lose it to Juventus even, who are in the top 4 as well. Milan Atalanta, here's where things get interesting, and it's interesting as well, the scheduling of games. It's weird because Milan Atalanta, they play on Sunday at 5 p.m, while Cagliari Inter Milan, who are the competitors in the race, they play at 7:45. And I know these things should not be as important as they look, but I think in the title race as tight as this one, 2 points between Inter Milan and AC Milan, it looks for me that they should be playing at the same time, or at least play 1 hour apart, so like they don't have this kind of conspiracy thing going. I think, in my opinion, I mean, obviously the last round is going to be played all the games at the same time, but I think maybe even this one, Serie A and the Italian Federation should have, like, at least see the light and try to make things fair for both sides, because there's going to be loads of complaints from both sides if there's anything fishy going on, particularly with the refereeing in Italy. And we saw how things got feisty in the Coppa Italia final between Inter and Juventus because of refereeing decisions, and Allegri completely lost his cool in that final. So Milan-Atalanta, a game where Atalanta, are still within a shout to play in the Europa League. Currently, they're out of the European positions completely. And there's a weird stat, by the way, going on that since the 1996 season, I think, Milan didn't win a league title where there is Atalanta. They didn't. Every season they win the title, Atalanta is not in the league, they're in Serie B. So that is quite an interesting stat, because if they manage to do it, it will be, first of all, it will be a curse breaker, I suppose. But if Inter Milan manage to win the title now and continue the curse, it's going to be an unbelievable story to tell about AC Milan. But the game itself is hard. As I mentioned, Atalanta still with a shout to play the Europa League football next season, which is something that they want to, understandably, because they've been consistently in the Champions League for the last 3 seasons, which is, something, pretty big. And Atalanta getting to they played knockout stages in the first 2 iterations of their outings in the Champions League, and then they were eliminated from the group stages. Down to the Europa League, they were eliminated from the quarterfinals. So it is going to be interesting to see how Atalanta play this game. Milan, of course, host them at the San Siro. They definitely need the points. It's going to be almost a celebratory kind of atmosphere, and depending on the results that Cagliari would get against Inter Milan, who are, of course, Cagliari in dire need of the win, because they need to, to get the points to survive. But obviously, if Milan win, if Cagliari win, there's a lot of wheels that are going to be spinning, because not just the title race is going to be decided in here if that happens, because if Cagliari drop points against Inter Milan, if Inter Milan drop points against Cagliari and Milan defeat Atalanta, that's Milan winning the title, not just almost, because there's at least a 4-point difference potentially that could be on to play into the final match day. But also, if Cagliari get the points against Inter Milan, they will help their case in the survival, that even if they don't win, they will at least give themselves a chance until the final day, at least with a draw, depending on what Salernitana does against Empoli on Saturday. Again, for Inter Milan, just winning the Coppa Italia against Juventus, they're coming with loads of momentum heading into this game. It's not going to be an easy one away to Cagliari, but Inter Milan, I think across the whole season, they played really well in the Serie A. I mean, they had this bad patch, particularly after being eliminated from the Champions League against Liverpool. They had this bad patch of form, but at least they caught themselves up in the late stages, and they managed to make a good run to keep themselves in the title race with AC Milan, who probably had the benefit of being eliminated earlier than Inter Milan in the Champions League, being eliminated in the group stages. Of course, that was a big advantage, I suppose, for AC Milan, and helped them a lot. Also, they were eliminated from the Cup in the semi-finals, so they had less things to worry about, and they had the full focus of their season for AC Milan onto winning the Serie A title for the first time since 2011. If you look at it, since being eliminated from the Coppa Italia, they won the 3 games on the bounce, which is, again, a testament to how focused that they were on winning the Serie A title for Atalanta. The bad patch of form after being eliminated from the Champions League all the way through the last month of April, and then as well, you think of their form in the Serie A as well. It hasn't been that good, and it cost them the top 4 places that they could have been playing for today, and they could have been in the top 4 places. And we were talking about a time where Atalanta should have been in the top 4 if they won their games in hand and stuff, but now it's not the same. For Cagliari against Inter Milan, again, points needed for both sides. Cagliari are more desperate for the result, I suppose, but Inter Milan, of course, they have the bigger objective, I suppose, which is winning the Serie A title, though that's why I favour Inter in this one. And of course, on Monday, it will be both Sampdoria versus Fiorentina and Juventus versus Lazio, the Juve-Lazio game. is more of a, I don't know, formalities. I think like there's nothing really special is going to be happening. Lazio have the 5th place almost guaranteed, because even with goal difference they have the advantage, of course. 19 plus goal difference for Lazio. They have, Roma and Fiorentina behind them, Atalanta as well behind them, but Atalanta have 20 goal difference, so maybe Atalanta will overtake them, in fact, if they win their game against Milan and Lazio lose or drop points against Juventus away from home at the Torino, at the Allianz Stadium in Torino. So it's going to be lots of plates spinning, lots of competition, lots of interesting bits and pieces here of story to follow in this week in Serie A. It's going to be really, really interesting to follow. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I was your boy, the HD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Do them all. And of course, follow us on social media, on Twitter and on Instagram, and listen on any podcast listening platform available. I'm your boy, the HD of the PSP. And until next time, take care and goodbye.